Hello, I'm Quatrina. You're watching Quatrina on News, where we go behind the headlines to bring you some clarity on what is going on. So we decode, and you get to decide what's important and what's not. Well, it's been a quiet couple of days since we last had a discussion like this. And one of the reasons for that has been that Iran has been incredibly quiet and has not responded significantly until just a couple of hours ago. And one of the important things you've seen here is that President Trump has also been somewhat muted in his responses on Truth Social, which is his favorite platform. And one of the things we saw was this image of him saying, "No more Mr. Nice Guy." Well, I guess he was a bit busy with King Charles's visit, and that distracted him from Iran for a while, but today the pressure is back on. And Iran has just sent through a set of proposals to the Pakistani mediators here in Islamabad. And it is expected that these mediators will convey Iran's new position to Washington, and then we can see where it goes. Now, there has been some tension. It's not accurate, for example, for me to say that America has not at all been looking at options. And some of the options that have apparently been discussed, and this is coming from Axios, which is an American news site which is considered to be fairly close to President Trump, that three options have been considered. One of those options, of course, has been opening the Strait of Hormuz by force, even if that entails using force and using ground troops. The second option, of course, has been a series of targeted attacks attacking Iran's infrastructure. And the third, of course, that has been mooted earlier and later is to send in special forces to retrieve Iran's enriched uranium. Now, all three of these present their own challenges to not just Iran, but to the United States and the world as a whole, because right now, the situation is that Iran is allowing some ships to go through the Strait of Hormuz, but the US is blocking ships that are leaving or trying to enter the Iranian ports and Iranian ships. And there have been some numerous events that have taken place. Now, what we can tell you is that Iran has sent a new set of proposals. We don't know what those proposals are. Pakistan is not going to tell you what those proposals are. They will send it to the United States, and they will wait for the United States to decide how they want to respond. Now, in the past few days, we've also seen that the 10 points that Iran presented for discussion, President Trump seems to have pretty much let all of them go by the wayside. And he knows that the Strait of Hormuz would likely open if he removed the naval blockade, which he now sees as one military strategy that he can use without spending a lot of money. There's been a lot of talk this past 2 or 3 days about how much the United States has already spent, with one Pentagon official saying it's been $25 billion, and other estimates going as high as $50 to $100 billion in this war that has lasted for 2 months already. So what is the one thing that President Trump is fixated on? Well, what he says is the nuclear thing. The nuclear what? It is not as easy to say the nuclear thing. President Trump has on different occasions said that Iran should have zero uranium enrichment. Iran says that's not happening. And we'll go into details about why not. But where does Iran truly stand when it comes to nuclear weapons? We're going to be discussing that in detail later on in this program. For now, let's just focus on what the current situation is. The current situation is that Iran has roughly between 300 to 400 pounds of highly enriched uranium, up to 60%. Now, 60% is not going to make you a nuclear weapon, but you don't need 60% to run any medical facility or run power plants or to do anything else. 60% is neither here nor there. What it really is, it's a message. It's a message to the world saying, we got it to 60%, we can take it down or we can take it up. That's the way I see it. It's as clear cut as that. Would Iran take it up? We'll discuss that and more. But very, very importantly now, we have to look at the main points that Iran had put up for negotiation. Now, are they offering something new to President Trump? Because Iran has taken this position, deal with the Strait of Hormuz, lift the blockade, we open it from our side, global shipping resumes, the world can breathe a sigh of relief. But let's talk about the nuclear issue later. And the US says, no, we discuss the nuclear issues now. This is a difficult situation. I can see why the United States is digging in its heels, but I would like to share with you a comment that was made by Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. He has been involved in nuclear negotiations for more than 10 years with the United States. And he says, we are ready for negotiation, but not dictation. We are ready for a deal, but a fair and balanced deal, not a one-sided deal. That's Iran's position. We want to be treated with equitable decisions. We want to be treated like equals. We want to be treated like a sovereign state. And the United States seems to think that they can actually force Iran to accept all their demands at gunpoint, literally. And that's not going to work. I think we have seen that repeatedly over and over again. And Mr. Araghchi spoke once again, I think it was yesterday, that war and diplomacy, we are ready for both. Well, we're going to discuss exactly where Iran's nuclear program stands. Where should it go? Can the US influence it? Should it? Now, before we go any further, I'd like to take a couple of seconds to ask you that if you like this video, please do subscribe to the channel, hit like, hit the icon that shows the bell, which will give you notifications on when new videos come up. And if you think your friends would enjoy it, please do share. It helps us a lot. Well, moving on to Iran's nuclear program. Iran's nuclear program has been an issue for decades. It's been discussed on and off, but there are some very interesting points that we need to keep in mind. For example, Iran is one of the 191 countries that signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. And under the NPT, Iran has the inalienable right, that is the phrase used, the inalienable right to enrich uranium upwards of 3.47%, I believe it is, which is what you need for nuclear power and any other non-military, non-weaponization program. Iran has consistently stayed there. And in fact, in 2015, we saw the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which took 20 months for all parties to agree, in which Iran agreed to abide by international norms and international regulations. And just yesterday, I'd like to share with you a very interesting tweet that came out from the United Nations, Iran's United Nations program. And let's see if I can quickly find that tweet here. Basically, it said that all our enriched uranium is accounted for. Nothing has gone missing, and the International Atomic Energy Agency has confirmed that. So Iran is saying, look, we're in compliance. As far as we're concerned, we're in compliance, but when the United States pulled out in 2018, President Trump basically tore up the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, and after that, Iran went ahead and enriched uranium to 60%. Again, why? Message? Threat? Who knows? Who knows exactly what Iran is thinking? But Iran has made its stand very, very clear. Why doesn't anyone want to believe them? That is the issue, isn't it? Is it that the hostility towards Iran, going back to the 1979 Islamic Revolution, for it to become a theocratic Shia Muslim state, for them to have taken hostages at the US Embassy, events that took place in 1979, are they still haunting Iran's reputation today? And I think the answer to that is pretty definitely. And I don't know at what point the world will be ready to admit or acknowledge that maybe Iran has something to say. They have not violated legally at any given time their position on nuclear enrichment. Have they made a nuclear weapon? I would say probably not. If they had, they would have tested it by now. That's just common sense and logic. I mean, let's look at this. Iran signed the NPT. You know who didn't? Pakistan didn't, India didn't, and Israel didn't. And India tested its own first nuclear weapon in 1974. And then in 1998, India carried out 5 nuclear weapons tests, in response to which Pakistan carried out 6 nuclear tests. This was in May of 1998. And immediately, sanctions were slapped on both India and Pakistan. The Glenn and Pennington amendments were used to block aid, to block all kinds of resources, to block loans to both countries. Pakistan had been facing the Pressler Amendment since 1990, which required the US president to certify that Pakistan did not have a nuclear weapons program. Pakistan sailed through those sanctions. Well, I wouldn't say sailed through. That's probably my being very unfair here. I was in Pakistan, and it was hard, and things did get tough, and there was incredible amounts of inflation. And yes, when Pakistan decided that they were going to test their nuclear weapons, all of a sudden they were part of the nuclear club, and nobody could do anything about it. What did happen? In 2001, after 9/11, sanctions on both India and Pakistan were lifted for their help in the war against terror. So where do we take it from there? When it suits you, you have sanctions. When it doesn't suit you, you don't. Iran probably feels somewhat justified in saying, we're in compliance, and yet you still hold us down and rub our nose in the dirt over the nuclear program. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say this again. You will hear this repeatedly from all Irani spokesmen, ministers, leaders. Iran is a very proud nation. They're not going to succumb to pressure. They've lived under sanctions for almost 50 years. They have lived with their assets frozen for nearly 50 years. Yet, it's not a basket case. Iran has an incredibly strong system of universal health care for all its people. Iran provides free education to men and women up to the college level. And it's quality education, and upwards of 90% of Iranians receive a good quality college education. Yes, there's a lot going wrong with Iran as well. There's no denying that. It is, at the end of the day, still a very theocratic and a very authoritarian state. And this is something that US negotiators really want to keep in mind. The message that you're getting right now from people like Speaker of the Parliament, Mr. Ghalibaf, President Pezeshkian, Foreign Minister Dr. Arabchi, deal with us. If you don't, you're going to deal with people who are way more hardline, which means the direct Islamic Revolutionary Guard. Do you really want to deal with the IRGC, who see a military solution for everything? Or do you want to deal with the diplomats who have been working on this issue for years? And that is the decision America has to take. I get that President Trump needs an out from this war, but he has to show some flexibility that Iran can take back, not only to their people, but also to the IRGC, to show that they haven't succumbed to American pressure. And not just that, for everything that we've seen from them so far, they're simply not going to.
Trump said no nuclear weapons, and we fully agree with that. And we can negotiate on our nuclear program to ensure that there is no nuclear weapons, to ensure that it is peaceful and would remain peaceful forever. That could be a very good deal. Of course, in return, we expect sanction lift. Let's focus on something which is possible and do not lose the opportunity for us. First, of course, we want our right to be, respected. And secondly, sanctions be lifted. Sanctions are imposed because there are concerns that our program may go for weapons, and we can continue our enrichment for peaceful purposes. Then every details of that is negotiable, and we can sit together in any forum and come to a conclusion. That is my belief. Look, peace and stability in this region is as important and vital for us, as it is important for others. We are a country next to the Persian Gulf, and that body of water is important for us to export our oil, to do business with others. Strait of Hormuz is very, very important also for us and for the whole world, and we have always kept it safe and have guaranteed safe passage thanks to the IRGC, who is protecting the safe passage and the freedom of navigation in the Persian Gulf and Sea of Oman and the Strait of Hormuz. And we continue to do so. And I hope that nothing would happen which interrupt that. It would be a big threat for everybody. If war starts, that would be a disaster for everybody.
The statement from Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, and it was recorded before the war, as far as I can tell. But very, very importantly, Dr. Arachi also made a statement on X, which was made on February 24th, so just 4 days before the United States and Israel attacked Iran, in which he said, "Our fundamental convictions are crystal clear. Iran will under no circumstances ever develop a nuclear weapon. Neither will we Iranians ever forego our right to harness the dividends of peaceful nuclear technology for our people." And that hasn't changed. And if President Trump insists on zero nuclear enrichment for Iran, that would be a deal breaker. Can this be negotiated? I sure hope so, because again, Iran is within its legal rights as a signatory of the NPT to say that they have the right to have enrichment up to 3.47 or 57%. Now, it's interesting that this is not a new attitude from Iran. I found a very interesting interview of Mr. Arachi when he was Iran's ambassador to Japan as far back as May 2008, in which one of the first things he did when he arrived as the ambassador to Japan, he visited Hiroshima. And there he went to the Hiroshima Memorial. And after that, he gave an interview in which he said, "We have multiple UN sanctions on us, yet Iran maintains its claim of peaceful atomic energy." And then he further went on to say, "Nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction should be abolished for everyone." So this is not a new stance taken by Iran. As I said, they've been on at this for a while, and there hasn't been any significant violation. And when people talk about violations, they have to keep in mind when those violations took place. It happened after they dropped out of certain agreements. Has Iran tried to get nuclear technology without enriching its own uranium? Yes, twice. Twice with international organizations where they talked to. One was something done by France a few years ago, where Iran said, "Give us 3.47 enriched uranium and we don't have to get our own," but Iran was rejected. Another time with another international consortium, perfectly legal. Each time, Iran was rejected. So we have to consider, why is there this specific hostility towards Iran? And it's been going on forever. And how long are we going to fixate on decisions, actions taken in 1979? I'm not saying they were right. Taking hostages at the American embassy certainly was not right. Has Iran funded proxies? Sure, so does everybody else. That's hardly something that you equate them with calling them terrorists and saying that it's a terrorist regime and therefore they must be beaten down and destroyed. That's not going to work. And I think the world has seen that Iran is more than capable of looking after its own interests through the use of conventional missile and drone technology. There's something that I want to point out here as well. It's not recent, this hostility towards Iran. Iran fought an 8-year war with Iraq, 1980 to 1988. During that war, Iran was literally not prepared for it. But first couple of years, they took a bit of a hammering, but then they fought back, and they fought back really hard. But Iraq used chemical weapons on Iranian civilians and on Iranian soldiers. By an independent estimate, there were more than 30 attacks on civilian and populations and on soldiers. This is considered the third worst use of chemical weapons since World War I and the Holocaust. First, Iraq used mustard gas, then tabun, then sarin. Iraq wasn't producing these. They were buying them from suppliers in Europe and the United States. And this is all available on the internet if you just go and look for it. Thousands of Iranian soldiers died. And in one bombing, which Iran still remembers very clearly, and it comes up in conversations with them, was the bombing on 4 residential areas of the city of Sardash. This happened in June 1987 at the height of what was later referred to as the tanker war, when the United States and other countries literally flagged oil tankers to make sure that oil tankers were not attacked while they were transiting through Iranian waters like the Shat al-Arab or the Strait of Hormuz. At Sardash, 130 people died instantly. More than 8,000 civilians, including children, were burned. Their lungs collapsed. They lost limbs. They lost vision. The Geneva Protocol on Chemical Weapons exists since 1925. Iraq consistently violated that. Was Iraq ever punished? No. Were the companies that provided chemical weapons to Iraq for use against civilian populations even reprimanded? No. So when Iran feels that it has been treated unfairly by the world and they no longer trust the world community, they have a lot of data to back that up. And I personally think that it's time that the world treated Iran with respect that it demands, with the dignity that it deserves. They have not started any war since the Iranian Revolution, not directly any war. Israel continues to have an undeclared nuclear weapons arsenal. No sanctions, no checks, no International Atomic Energy Agency checks, no compliance. If we want balance of power in the region, then the balance of power has to be applied evenly and equally. You cannot sanction one country and let another one get away with what it wants to do simply because you have alliances with that country. Unfair treatment is not going to work in this reality of 2026. Iran has made that supremely clear. One thing before I go, which really, 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 really bothers me. Are we actually pushing countries into a nuclear arms race? Are we going to see proliferation in other countries? The data is on the ground. Pakistan and India tested. They became nuclear club members. The 5 original members, of course, were the 5 big powers that already had nuclear weapons prior to the NPT. China, UK, USA, I forget who else, 2 more, Russia, and France. And then Pakistan and India joined the club. Won't other countries now feel that if they had nuclear weapons, no one would ever dare fire a missile at them again? I'm sure a lot of countries are thinking that. And that's not the direction we want to go in. Not for Iran, not for any other country. It is an absolute miracle that we have not had more proliferation than we have seen so far. We've had strategic arms reduction treaties, we've had the SALT talk, the SALT II talk, arsenals have been reduced in the arsenals of Russia and the United States. In the late 80s, there was 3 million tons of TNT for every man, woman, and child on this planet. We were in a downward spiral which would have destroyed everything. Thank God it didn't. But I have fears now. So equitable and fair treatment, starting with Iran and for everybody else. Nuclear enrichment is a right for those countries who have signed the NPT. There's no denying that. And whether President Trump likes it or not, he's going to have to accept that reality. Unless, of course, he wants to go for his other options, which are a ground invasion, more bombing of Iran, sending in people to steal the uranium. How's that going to help anyone? Right now, the smart thing to do is open the Strait of Hormuz, lift the blockade, and start talking again. When war stops, diplomacy always takes over and always succeeds. Goodbye for now.